सिर्फ इसलिए कि हम 20 मिनट्स में कोशिश करके इसको कवर कर सकें आर्टिफिशियल लर्निंग को. Before I did my introduction, right? So before we start discussing deep learning, I would start by discussing the world that we live in. So the world that we live in is a mathematical world. And this is what Galileo said, that mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe. And Galileo was not the only person who said it. There were a lot of mathematicians, physicists, who have said that our world is mathematical. Or some mathematics is simple mathematics, and some mathematics is hard. Like, easier to understand, some is hard to understand. Some is that some mathematics we can intuitively perceive, and some of it is not perceivable by us. लेकिन वेट, अगर तो दुनिया मैथमेटिकल है और मैथमेटिकल है दुनिया, तो व्हाई नॉट एवरीवन इज अ मैथमेटिशियन. बहुत सारे लोग हैं. अगर आप किसी से भी रैंडमली पूछेंगे कि व्हाट वाज योर लीस्ट फेवरेट सब्जेक्ट इन द स्कूल वाज, और तो दे मोस्ट प्रॉब्ली से दैट इज मैथमेटिक्स. So how do we go about living or navigating through this life or utilizing it or actually doing a very good job being a very successful species as human beings? यार लोगों को छोड़े, has anyone ever seen a dog catch a frisbee? I mean, it is an amazing thing. अगर किसी ने नहीं देखा तो YouTube पे इसकी बहुत सारी वीडियोस हैं, and I'm guilty of being addicted to this actually. So no one can say that a dog doesn't know Newtonian equations. Clearly it doesn't. But watching a dog catch it, you probably know that a dog has a sense of these. So how does the dog do it? How does it do it? So we discussed that too. That dog has something remarkable which makes it understand this mathematical universe. So before that, before I delve into it, we discussed what is mathematics, what I call mathematics. Now, is there a mathematician here? So thankfully there is no mathematician here. So because now whatever I be doing, it is considered less to me in mathematics actually. So what I consider mathematics, and for the sake of our discussion here, is our world is made up of functions. And what is function? Function is just a process such that if you give an input to it, it would give you an output. Now that could be anything. That input could be anything. That input could be, let's say, for example, temperature in Fahrenheit, would give you temperature in Celsius, for example. It could be things like the velocity of frisbee or the weight of frisbee, and where the output would be, where it's going to land. And everything in this world is made up of functions. These inputs could be so many variables, could be one variable, and these are complex functions. And there are infinite amount of possible functions that are present. Now coming back to the dog, how does it do it? So the dog has something remarkable. It has this. It has the brain. And what does the brain do? A brain is an approximator. What it does is that if you show brain data in the form of input and output, if you show it data, it would eventually try to approximate that function really well. And this is what the brain does. But how does the brain do it? ये है हमारा million dollar question. How does the brain do it? Deep learning, artificial intelligence, I would say, is the side effect of answering this question. हमारी 4,000 year की जो हमारी developmental history है, हमारी recorded history है, उसमें this was the most important question. And जितने philosophers आए हैं, जितने mathematicians आए हैं, they were actually chasing this. How do we think? So deep learning is actually it is trying to answer this question. Or artificial intelligence का big chunk is deep learning. If not all of it. So this is basically that usually in the community it is never touched on. It is considered a black box. But I would try to attempt a brave thing here. I would try to open the black box for once. Yeah. So how does the brain work? This is a question. So our brain is this intricate, a very intricate, a remarkable organ, and it is very complex and beautiful. But And you'd be amazed that this actually is a brain of this Drosophila, this is a fruit fly. And you can only imagine that what a brain of a human being would be. It's very complex compared to this. So, dissecting it further, what is the brain made of? The brain is made of these tiny little cells. These are building blocks of brain. These are called neurons. And on this right proximal part, the globular part of it is the cell body. We call that cell body of the neuron. Now this is some anatomy for you. And the tiny processes that are growing out of it are, we call them dendrites. And the huge thing that is coming out of it is axon. So what happens is that one axon connects with several other axons through these processes. And this is how the architecture of brain is built. There are other things as well, but like I am oversimplifying things. But this is the architecture. What makes brain function? What makes it tick? So the answer is electricity. There are light impulses that are generated in the neurons. And the strength of these impulses decides what impulse should be propagated towards which neuron. And you can appreciate this. This is a microscopic image of neurons being fired. So this is a functioning brain or part of it. And you can see here that these neurons are flickering, but not all of them are flickering. And this is the strength of the stimulus that is deciding which neuron to bring up further. So basically, like Einstein said that everything should be made simple but not simpler, but I'm trying to make things simpler now. So, trying to make things simpler, we can say that the functioning of the brain can be simplified into two processes: the architecture of the connection between these neurons and the strength of these electrical impulses that is generated. Now, this is everything. ये हमारी thinking थी, हम इसी तरह करते हैं. We learn like this, and we even store our memories like this through connection and through strength of the electrical impulses that pass through them. So what happened in the early part of the last century? Some engineers, mathematicians, they decided to formalize this concept into a computer. ये करके देखते हैं कंप्यूटर में कि इस पूरे सिस्टम को हम फॉर्मलाइज करते हैं कंप्यूटर में प्रोग्राम करके देखते हैं कि if it works or not. अच्छा, so they did it, or for very few simple rules, simple functions, it did good, it did well. लेकिन as there are infinite amount of functions, so what would they do? What would the natural thing to do? The natural thing is what a mathematician does is proving things. They prove things whether if they are true or they are right. So this is what they did. They came up with a remarkable theorem, a very beautiful and simple theorem, which is called universal approximation theorem. And the universal approximation theorem is this. This is gibberish here. And this is just to indicate that you don't need to go for the thing. Here we don't need to go into the mathematical details. And what it does is this. For a given set of neurons, here on this vertical column you can see these are neurons. And the subscript x's, these are the inputs. For a finite number of neurons, in an activation function, whatever that is. For a finite amount of neurons, if it is connected like this, it would approximate every function there is. But what is finite? Like the number of people in this room are finite. The stars in our galaxy are finite, and even the atoms in our galaxy are finite. So what they did, that they eventually came up with a more efficient way, and what they did is that they stacked these layers of neurons, just like our brain. They are in our brain. Or उसमें they found out that this was a little more efficient. So this came to be known as the feed-forward neural network. It was the original architecture neural network before the other architecture came. And this was powerful. Even by the standard of the slow processors that we had, even by that it was powerful. And the first automatic autonomous cars that were self-driven were trained on these type of architecture. later on, when we started trying these models on more exotic type of data, for example, the images, it didn't really do a lot of good. So another inspiration came from biology. Is that what we do is that when we perceive things, it goes into areas of the brain, and the area of the brain that processes the visual information is here. It's called the visual perception area. So इसमें what they did, what biologists, there were two biologists that were working on it in the 60s. They even got a Nobel Prize for it. That they did the neurons in our visual cortex, the visual area, they are arranged in such a way, hierarchical way, that the proximity of the input, such as the image, is not lost. And so mathematicians again came up with a way to formalize that too, and to invite a conversation by a very simple. You can appreciate, most of you I think would have taken this linear algebra. It is basically vector multiplication and matrix multiplication. This convolution and max pooling. And when they applied this to this architecture of neural network, what they found out that they could actually classify images too. They could approximate functions that took images as an input too. So here is the same neural network. You can see on the leftmost side there is an image of the number 60, and then through each layer it is being classified. And in each layer you can appreciate that there is a proximity of pixels that is being maintained, and in each layer there is a different set of abstraction that is being learned, and at the end it is classifying it really well. So now there was a question about how are you going to how do you classify cancer? Right? There was a question from it. So this is how you do it. So diagnosing cancer is what do we do once the cancer is suspected? Whenever the cancer is suspected, we slice that area open and we take out a biopsy. Biopsy is we take out that tissue from that area. And what we do is we observe that area under the microscope. Now, a microscope really reduces the dimensions, but it also misses a lot of things. And it is very hard for a human being to look every single set of tissue or even a cell for cancer. So this is why this thing is very error prone. But now this has changed because of these convolutions in the network. Now these are so good that they have outperformed even trained pathologists at their own task. Now pathologist is a doctor. He has a guy who has gone to medical school, and after that he has gone to for a specialization of 6 years just to get a cancer, and they've outperformed them. So this is how we do it. There was another paper by Andrew, the Czech net paper. They did the same thing to pneumonia. You would show them this pneumonia X-ray, and they would diagnose it. So this is one use case of convolutional neural network. I want you to think of computer vision and think of convolutional neural networks. They are so good. Another thing is another architecture that is also in part biologically inspired are recurrent neural networks. Now these are what happens is that so far what we have been observing is that input एक direction से आ रहा है and it is going in the same direction. Now recurrent neural networks को मैं डिटेल में नहीं जाऊँगा because I don't think I have. So what it does is they get feedback from the layers too. Or what it does is एक memory they kind of maintain some memory of the data of the internal representation of the data. That would be the right thing. So what happens is that these kind of neural networks, this architecture of neural networks, this recurrent neural network, and it's a slightly augmented form that is called NSTM. You would have heard some of the people I've heard were talking in some context of this NLP. So this works really well on sequence data. Something, let's say for example, the word that I'm saying, the word that I'm going to say is going to depend on the word that I've already said. So this is sequential data, in which the future depends on the past too. So it works really well on that. And there are huge, remarkable success stories of it in NLP. So this was our introduction to deep learning, and I've tried to open the box a little. And now the important part is when do we apply deep learning? अच्छा deep learning से देख के तो लगता है कि it is a very powerful thing and it will solve all our problems, लेकिन this is not the case. Deep learning is very expensive. Expensive in terms of resources, I would say, things to train. This would be the last thing on your mind if you are going to train it. But for the cases in which there is no other solution exists, this is the best solution. I mean, it is changing the world. It indeed is. So before you apply deep learning, you have to keep these things in mind. That if a mathematical equation, a simpler mathematical equation or a process exists, you would apply deep learning. You would simply go to that equation and you would apply a process, and you save yourself a lot of time. And again, if the process for a task that you are trying to work on, if you are trying to approximate on is simple, you wouldn't try deep learning. You would try in turn to look for that mathematical equation that gives rise to the function that the input and output. And then if the Bayes pattern exists, of course, because you wouldn't be able to know if the pattern doesn't exist. And the statistics will tell you if the pattern exists or not. And make sure to have good data, because there are a lot of stories where these models have gone wrong. Because I would say that in the words of a great statistician, he said that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So it is a double-edged sword. And please note here that this emphasis is on good data rather than on things. We would want a large data set, but it wouldn't be an enormous data set. It should just surpass all of the concentration and equality. So I would be discussing that. So to end this, deep learning is hype. Most of it is hype. Yes, it is. But even if you minus the hype, it is still a very important thing, and we are going to use it. And this technology